The corn will die soon.
We'll find a way, Professor. We always have.
Driven by the unshakable faith, the earth is ours.
It is Barbieheimer month. As Christina has been reminding us for at least a year now, July is the month when Greta Gerwig's Barbie movie and Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer open on the same day, fueling an intense marketing rivalry.
Round 1, fight!
We have previously covered Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig's amazing solo directorial debut, and we dipped a small toe into Christopher Nolan's previous work with our Memento episode. As Christopher Nolan's catalog is deep and very varied, we thought we'd catch the algorithmic wave with a newer and more sweeping Christopher Nolan movie. Tonight we're going to be discussing the sweeping 2-hour and 46-minute space epic, Interstellar. Christopher Nolan directed, produced, and even co-wrote this 2014 science fiction film. As most space operas do, Interstellar pays serious tribute to Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Since Kubrick made 2001 as a magnum opus in 1968, it has been the gold standard that space epics strive for. And like Kubrick, Christopher Nolan had lots of help from real astrophysicists and scientists to make Interstellar scientifically up to par.
And we went back and forth for 2 weeks, and finally he threw in the towel.
What Kip's referring to is I had wanted an element of the story where people traveled faster than the speed of light.
Right.
And it was something that was pretty important to me, and
Right.
he made it very clear over a fairly long period of time that that is not possible.
Yeah.
In fact, the idea for this sweeping project came from theoretical physicist Kip Thorne and producer Linda Obst. They'd previously helped make Carl Sagan's novel Contact into a film in 1997, and they started talking about making Kip Thorne's work into an accessible film. They got as far as attaching Steven Spielberg to the project after he read an 8-page treatment. However, when Spielberg left Paramount for Disney, DreamWorks had to leave the project behind. Spielberg had gotten Jonathan Nolan, yes, Chris's brother, on board as a screenwriter, and soon the idea of exploring space-time piqued his interest, and he joined his brother on the project. Jonathan Nolan had gone to the California Institute of Technology to study relativity for 4 years to write this screenplay. He also became fascinated with the Dust Bowl, and Chris got permission from Ken Burns to use some of his Dust Bowl interviews.
This happened about 1:30 when that thing came off the top of that canyon.
In my day, we had real ball players.
However, the many ideas that Jonathan Nolan and Kip Thorne had come up with had to be cut down to a few key ideas and turned into a real screenplay. Still, the space epic came in at a staggering close to 3-hour runtime. The film stars Matthew McConaughey, Jessica Chastain, Anne Hathaway, Matt Damon, Michael Caine, and Timothée Chalamet. Christopher Nolan's search for a leading man, Matthew McConaughey as Cooper, sought a relatable everyman to help us as an audience experience the story. Other actors like Casey Affleck, Mackenzie Foy, and Ellen Burstyn play differently aged versions of Murph and Tom, the children of Matthew McConaughey's Coop.
Early 1980s, it seemed clear to me that the first thing we would see would be colliding black holes. And it seemed also clear to me that we really needed to have a capability to simulate colliding black holes in order to understand the signals well enough in order to be able to analyze the data. And so I think perhaps my biggest contribution was making sure that happened.
The work of Kip Thorne is deeply embedded in this tale of desperate space travel. Thorne's research has been into relativistic astrophysics, black holes, and gravitational waves, for which Thorne co-founded the LIGO Institution, Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. However, his most well-known and controversial claim is a theory that wormholes could be used for time travel.
You have a wormhole. It has two mouths. One mouth stays here in this room, I give the other mouth to my wife, and she has very advanced technology, and so she rides this very rapid spacecraft out for about, say, a year out at nearly the speed of light, and then comes back. And so 2 years have elapsed as seen by her, but as seen by me, 50 years have elapsed. So I am really old by the time I come back. But if we hold hands through the wormhole, just looking, she looks at my watch, I look at hers, they have to tick at the same rate. That seems pretty obvious, and it is the case.
The Nolans and Thorne consulted with many scientists, toured NASA and SpaceX, and even had astronauts come on set. The film takes place in the dystopian near future, where a crop disease called blight is ravaging the world's crops and replacing the oxygen it takes with nitrogen, slowly making the Earth uninhabitable.
Earth's atmosphere is 80% nitrogen. We don't even breathe nitrogen. Blight does, and as it thrives, our air gets less and less oxygen. The last people to starve will be the first to suffocate.
And your daughter's generation will be the last to survive on Earth.
Somewhere in the decades before 2067, when the story starts, the global famine forced every nation to rethink how they've structured themselves. Most Americans had to become farmers. Only a select elite get a college education, and teaching farming and agriculture became the priority. Cooper is a former NASA pilot turned farmer trying to raise 2 kids after the death of his wife.
I can't tell you any more unless you agree to pilot this craft. You're the best pilot we ever had.
I barely left the stratosphere.
This team never left the simulator. We need a pilot, and this is the mission that you were trained for.
After getting a strange signal from a gravitational anomaly, Cooper and Murph stumble into NASA headquarters, which is now underground because of the new society's priorities. This is not an accident, it's a message, and Cooper has been chosen to fly the Endurance spacecraft on a mission to find the scientist explorers who have been previously gone into space searching for a new exoplanet that can sustain human life. The same unseen beings, they, who have given Cooper the message, were nice enough to open a wormhole near Saturn, which can quickly take our scientific team into a different galaxy. The Endurance, in keeping with the accuracy of the film, was designed around the International Space Station. It should go without saying that another inspiration was Kubrick's Space Station, which rotates majestically in space in 2001. Interstellar also utilizes robots, which must do maintenance and operate the Endurance. Case and Tars are 2 such robots whose disembodied voices eerily bring you back to HAL 3000, the villain of 2001.
Everybody good? Plenty of slaves for my robot colony? Give him a humor setting so he fit in better with his unit. He thinks it relaxes us. A giant, sarcastic robot.
This is played for laughs, with Tars admitting that it can lie, be sarcastic, and keep secrets, which horrifies Cooper.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me.
The wormhole and black hole visual effects were supervised by Kip Thorne and modeled after real images and theoretical equations from the Event Horizon Telescope, and the spherical wormhole is scientifically accurate. The Nolans hoped that Interstellar would spur an increasing interest in and understanding of space exploration. Christopher Nolan also raises questions about our conception of a greater good and whether we can even try to supersede the notion of individualism. This is, quite frankly, a terrifying subject to broach on the brink of a climate disaster. After undergoing a pandemic and watching 1 million Americans die, many in easily preventable cases, we just went back to normal. In Interstellar, similarly, we begin in a grim, desolate, but normalized society undergoing an extinction-level catastrophe, but slowly enough to have a new normal. The dystopian quality of an Earth where deception must reign at the core for humans to even take the massive emergencies seriously hits so hard. More than ever, the questions raised in Interstellar feel like a screeching warning in a situation just a touch less dire than the nightmarish one dreamed up by 2 Batman screenwriters and a theoretical physicist who believes in time travel.
General settings. Security settings. Honesty, new setting. 95%.
Confirmed. Additional customization.
Humor. 75%.
Confirmed. Auto self-destruct. T-minus 10, 9.
Let's make that 60%.
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, let me say, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live show, send us a super chat. We are absolutely obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer it. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are available on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, host of Britonic Reversal, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist, comic designer, and artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and Bad Takes. Christina Oakes, this Barbie is streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Cosmopolitics. She's also on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Cosmopolitics. KT Baldassaro is an actress, director, and writer who wrote and co-directed and also starred in Girl in the Basement, along with appearing in quite a few horror movies. I, of course, am your intergalactic traveling host, Forrest Dust Bowl Miller, and I am, guys, I'm stuck in a wormhole. I'm stuck in a fucking wormhole. I'm like literally like Winnie the Pooh. Can I get some help here?
Well done. Also, the part of Christina Oakes will be played by the Wolfman, as portrayed by Lon Chaney, with a guitar. Thank you.
Also, I'm still stuck in that wormhole. You know I can't allow that, Conan.
I love the fact that you used that picture from your cult. That religious group that is around the bisexual forest.
It's the shrine of the bisexual forest. And everyone just they have a good time. They vibe. I think you should join. Yeah. You should all join my cult. It's a time travel cult. I'm using my time travel, my interdimensional skills that I learned watching this movie. Right, I'm using it to get people to join my cult. I just whisper things. Well, I write things using my quantum gravity powers that I learned. You know what I mean? Like I write like cult, and then they're like, "Oh no, Nate, not a cult. It's not a cult, guys. It's not a cult."
Talk about playing a long game.
Yeah. You know what you could have been doing? You could have been using these time travel abilities to have people go back to Bandcamp Friday and buy Conan's album.
That's right. I would be in support of your cult then.
Conan Neutron and the Secret Cult.
Exactly.
This movie hits fucking hard. Like at a point where we just gotten to the other side of a pandemic, and the climate apocalypse is literally like coming pretty fast, and we all know that. We've all been warned about that, and we're constantly hearing
except for our leaders.
Well, yeah, but like we're constantly hearing, like we only have this amount of time before it rises above 2 Celsius, and then the whole world gets hotter, and then we can't turn it around. And for like a new normal to be like established around that, like this movie has so many parts to it. Of the almost 3 hours that that it exists into.
Well, what? Okay, so if that's how we're gonna dive into it, and again, one of my only major complaints about this movie is that it's the blight, the thing that we're suffering through, and it's like, well, okay, so just there's not a lot of interest in explaining it. Like I get using like the Dust Bowl stuff for it, and I think that's an interesting take on things, but I mean, just to get it out of the way, we passed the point of conservation about like when I was a baby. Like we need to terraform this planet right now. So just to get that out of the way, I know we all know that.
That's how the blight starts. We start trying to terraform the planet, and then we're like, we fucked up. We created the blight.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought this up, Conan, because this is I went into the film having had that conversation with you about like how, why. And so I did a deep dive into the how, why. And I'm satisfied, but also not satisfied. I think that I'm probably paraphrasing pretty badly, a Mark Twain quote where he says, like, as long as you start with a kernel of accuracy, you can go pretty far from that and still be pretty entertaining. Right. what happened is, and this is what I'm gleaming from individual sentences said in different scenes, we try to terraform the earth by putting a type of algae into the water to correct an issue that we're having. It winds up mutating due to solar rays and produces a hyper-growing type of algae that feeds on the mostly nitrogen in our nitrogen in our atmosphere. It overgrows, it enters our like food supply system, and it starts to overcompete our current crops, causing them to die off. Now, here's where the fact that he says the two sentences that we showed in the trailer next to each other, they're like, oh, so this plant really likes nitrogen, and then also our atmosphere is no longer going to be viable for us. It's not exactly causative because, okay, so I breathe out CO2. A plant takes that in, scrubs off the carbon molecule, throws back out the O2, and that's how we deal with current carbon emission issues. If that plant isn't there to do that, I keep off-gassing CO2 and nothing is scrubbing it. So the overcompleting plant kills off our scrubber. That's what ruins our air. And because those plants are not there to have the deep roots, we wind up also with a dust bowl situation, which is affecting our lungs. It's not all like a domino, but it's like a circle of shit.
You need a whole movie just to explain that, by the way. But that was a very succinct explanation.
And I like that they don't. They never dive into anything. They're like, it's the blight.
Could not be bothered whatsoever to give that explanation, or even like a hint of it, or like, oh, it's if you look at this blackboard, it's like no, absolutely not. And I like the idea of it. Basically us creating our own invasive species with all of this bioengineering of plants and things. Well, I think what nature meant to do was no. Nature knew exactly what nature was doing, and don't fool with it if you don't know it.
This is what also really bothers me. So, okay, we have an atmosphere where we need to scrub out nitrogen, deal with our carbon emission. We don't immediately go into Stephen King's The Sphere, create a biosphere where we can control the atmosphere. That we like. Oh, okay, fine. But also, like, Other Planet isn't exactly where I'd jump. But that being said, I fucking love this movie. I will excuse the shit out of that.
I would agree with you. And especially, I think I liked it more the second time. And I say that as someone that, like my mid-20s crisis, people talk about your mid-20s crisis, was that I wanted to become a physics teacher. So I'm a big physics nerd. Right. And this is one of the better movies for physics nerds. Like, honestly, like there's a lot of, quantum theory, entanglement, fifth dimension. Like I like, Forrest, that you included some of the stuff from that fountain of charisma, the scientist guy on
Kip
there, because
Thorne?
I think he,
to be fair, he was way more charismatic when he was younger. Like, he's.
He had that leather jacket on. Come on, you got to give us some points for that.
Look. But I'm glad it's there, because a lot of times that's just dismissed as, nerd stuff, and people just move on and then come up with some, like, just reboot the flux capacitor sort of explanation for it. But this is actually pretty well grounded enough in science that if you're understanding, first of all, that it serves a narrative function. It's filmmaking. Right, this is not a documentary. This isn't Nova. I love Nova. Peace and love. But like it's a very strong foundation to bring up this like a speculative fiction that ultimately, and I'm sure Andy would agree with me, could basically be a very expensive Doctor Who episode.
Well, there's not enough hallways that they're running up and down, though. That's
right, exactly. There has to be a quarry involved at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like that he gave the scientist like veto power too over us, because you could just go like, look, we have a scientist, he's a consultant, but like the movie was the scientist's idea. He wanted to put his own work into something, and then Christopher Nolan got attached later. So I like the idea that he's like, well, we can solve the narrative problem this way, and the scientist is like, yeah, but you can't. That's not the science. Like you got to follow the science. And he's like, because a director like Christopher Nolan could just supersede that authority and be like, no, I'm doing it. I want to do it. It's my movie. And like, the guy storms off and he's like, this movie's not scientific. I'm glad that he didn't do that. And he actually was like, well, if there's like, he's like, go home and think about it. And he comes back and he's like, yeah, I went home. I thought about it. And there's still no way that, like I poured through the books. I poured through the sacred texts. And there's still no way that, that this could happen in the universe. You can go like through time, but you can't go really fast. Like fast, like it literally the message of it is, time travel, yes, fast travel, no.
Which you do not see much of in science fiction.
Correct
You
me
know
if I'm
why?
wrong.
Because it doesn't make for a compelling visual.
Wasn't this written by Nolan and his brother?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so they had Thorne come on and assist with that.
Thorne was the first one involved. He wanted to make this movie. They had Spielberg that was going to help them make the movie. It was after, So Spielberg had to go to Disney. They didn't get to take the movie with them, like the movie, when he went to Disney.
Which is wild because I feel like the very ending, is kind of Spielberg-y.
I know why. I could tell you why.
Okay. Let's
dive in
finish,
this shit. But yeah,
I want to hear this. But
Christopher Nolan's brother got involved with Spielberg, and then he got Christopher Nolan to come on after Spielberg left, because he was interested in making people want to go to space more, because we haven't gone to space in so long. He's like, we should make a movie about space. So he was like, do I have a script for you? And gave him the script that he was working on. And then he went to school. He went to Caltech for 4 years. Christopher Nolan's brother to write this.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's like, so he was so far.
What's his
into
brother's
it at that
name?
point.
Skippy Nolan.
Jonathan Nolan.
Jonathan, okay.
But he was so deep into it at that point that he could practically become a physicist, but he was doing it to write the script. So Christopher Nolan got involved and started throwing out a lot of their ideas that they had come up with over this really long process. He had to go through all the the kernel here, there's a treatment of so they wrote up the treatment, and he's like, I like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, and then he made it his own. But it was originally supposed to be a movie that came out in the early 2000s with Spielberg as the director.
That would have been. I don't think it would have had the grittiness that it needs.
No, certainly not. And the seriousness of it, like as a big blockbuster picture, which can also be like, that's a double-edged sword with Nolan. That there's time where it's like, come on, bro, really? But I think it absolutely works here, and I think it's one of the last times we kind of have seen that in a picture of this size in recent memory. I'm curious. Well, KT, what were you going to say about the Spielberg thing? Because I have somewhere I want to go.
I have one more thing I have to say.
Okay,
so the reason that this movie even was an idea in the first place is that Kip Thorne and Lydia Oberst, or
I thought you were going to say Lydia Tarr.
No, but his friend, that they were both friends with Carl Sagan, and the Matthew McConaughey movie Contact that was based on Carl Sagan's novel. They had both consulted on that and worked on it. And then, so this was Kip Thorne basically saying, "Hey, we should do my version. Look, I'm interesting too. You should do my version."
And I'm alive.
So she was like, "Yeah, all right, I like that idea." So they started pitching around that a movie, basically the core of. They had an 8-page treatment, and they walked around and they're like, "We have this treatment, and we want to make another science movie." And then eventually got it made. 2 decades later.
They had just done Carl Sagan's Contact, and it was not well received. So I could see them being like, ooh. I was going to say, I am obsessed with this kind of science and black holes, much like you are, Conan. Not because I had a midlife crisis where I want to be a physicist, but because I think you really get 2 types of stoners in the world: those that watch nature documentaries, and then those that watch black hole documentaries, and I am the latter. But Disney already owned IP exactly like this that they didn't want to reboot because they felt it was too dark and too gritty.
Like
you guys
black
must.
Hole?
I was gonna say, come on, y'all. I mean, that's what my I'm Vincent, vital information necessary unit.
Oh yeah, okay. That's been a bit since I've seen that one.
It is on Disney. You can watch it right now for free. It holds up, and it is a lot darker than you would expect from a Disney movie in 1979.
Pretty dark. Yeah.
It is.
I remember being like, I don't know if I should be watching this dark.
I mean, Maximilian Schell plays the villain, so go big on that. But the entire encapsulated story with Matt Damon's character, where there's the mutiny of the original ship because he doesn't find the correct planet. That's the story of Black Hole, the 1979 film. So much so that when they went to reboot it, they had to cancel it because they were told that they were ripping off Interstellar.
That's by the way, I had Black Hole bed sheets as a kid.
That's fantastic.
That is simultaneously awesome and not surprising in any way, shape, or form.
I feel like they also took a similar plot to that, and they put it into Ad Astra. at the end with his father.
Yeah,
with the mutiny and like.
Mhm.
So I like that there's like a core of scientific movies that came out in like the mid 20th century, right? Like 2001: The Space Odyssey, like Black Hole, like these like bigger movies that came out a while back that still kind of form the core of like what you can really do, or like what directors are looking to do in their own version of a space opera. I mean, Star Wars obviously too.
But James Gray's approach is like to literally everything is so much different than Chris Nolan's approach.
Yes.
Yeah. I was just talking about like the core of like the story.
There was kind of like no space saga, and then like, hey everybody, here's all the space sagas, right? Like they did like The Martian, right? Which that was another one.
With Matt Damon.
Yeah, again, also with Matt Damon, who apparently just gets stuck in places. But anyway.
But I definitely feel like if you watch this 1979 Black Hole, which is the first film about a black hole, you see every film that's ever been about a black hole. I mean, it ends with they go through the black hole, and one of them winds up in hell, one of them winds up in heaven. That's Event Horizon. But what really drove me crazy is this is 1979, and they had the same thing as this film, which is that they thought that they could go through the black hole at the right angle and slingshot through. So I'm like, did Kip Thorne also work on 1979 Black Hole?
Maybe.
Maybe. Also, kudos to everyone for saying Kip Thorne and not Rip Torn.
What if in Kip Thorne's biography he had been played by Rip Torn, though?
Just trying to steer away from that every time I say his name.
I also think that it's notable that one of the goals of this is to kind of like remind people of like the possibles with space travel. And I will say this, that what liberal and progressive people of power in positions of power exist within this country are usually completely uninterested in space travel. It's traditionally been actually something pushed very hard by Republicans. And again, by Republicans, I mean like this idea of the Republican that doesn't exist anymore, that exists only in the West Wing, so on and so on. But Rockefeller Republicans, so on and so on, oftentimes in the mindset of frontiership, meaning that like, it's a new frontier. We're going to conquer this new frontier and like, plant our flag, so on and so on.
Trump did that a little. Well, let's be fair.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Yes.
I mean,
but also,
but hold on, I'm not even remotely close to the point.
Well, no, but I had an addendum to your point. The reason that Rockefeller Republicans often did that is because a lot of them come from like California and stuff, where the defense contracts are also
they can make, there's money to be made.
Which I'm not. The one kind of good, I mean, not good, but like the one kind of benign defense contract, right, is probably the one that for NASA, that you do better space travel, but that is why they pushed it.
But it's not the sole reason. It's not the sole reason, because again, just like how like you can be an idealist and be conservative, they don't just say like, I'm going to get today and do evil. They think they're doing good, right? So it's important to notice that like, and again, this is mostly, no one talks about space now. It's like it's like space. Jesus Christ, we're too busy blowing this planet up. We're going to blow up other ones. But like it's interesting that I can't think of any modern initiative. Like I feel like the big cliche is every president be like, we're going to Mars. Like, no, we're not. Who do you think you're fooling? We're done.
I feel like but I feel like that's almost like the McDonald's thing. Like, Mom, can we get McDonald's? We have we have food at home. It's like, can we have like plan it? And it's like, we planned it at home, and it's Earth. And it's like,
but the one thing I will say, and it's not a very popular thing to bring up in especially among online leftists, is the first time anyone talks about space travel, well, we could be using that money here, and it's like, well, yeah, but it shouldn't be an either-or game. And the fact that it's been sort of socialized so much that the idea of it being like it's just a wasteful enterprise shows how far as a national consciousness we've changed in just in our lifetimes.
It's also why fucking dipshit Elon Musk was able to go underbid all the contracts that NASA had, because we're not giving NASA the funding that they need, and Elon Musk was able to start SpaceX and and Jeff Bezos, because those are the people with the money. Since the government isn't putting resources into that anymore, it's been given some of the two most small-dicked individuals that we've had in the American power circles have been able to underbid our federal projects with that.
Yeah,
It's not good. Not good.
W. Bush.
And if you want to watch an interesting television show about this concept, go watch For All Mankind.
For All
which is
Mankind!
a show that postulates what if NASA became privatized? How would that change their ability, and what would that maybe have changed for us? It also postulates that Russia gets there before us to the moon, but
it's actually a good thing. We end up with like a NASA that actually is like looks a little more like America. Like there's a lot of Andy and I champion that show all the time, and to almost no good of kind whatsoever. But
the forest just, you're absolutely right. You hit right at the point. It's the funding issues that cause a lot of this.
Which is not accidental, right? Like that's completely by design. And it's the same, it's the same thing where okay, so we gave away the infrastructure for at the time it was Pac Bell, eventually AT&T, for like what is now the foundation of the entire internet. At the time was the phone lines, right? We gave it away for nothing. And then they get to lease it out to other people in the spirit of private enterprise and competition. In that same way, there hasn't, because there was no interest in space like there was when our parents were young, that like you can get away with that because the idea of like going to space is like, oh yeah, that's like, it's fantasy. That's Star Wars. That's Star Trek. That's like some far off future stuff. That's not something that's happening in real life. And the rare exceptions is you get situations like Mark Kelly, right? Where you have people that are like, oh yeah, by the way, I was an astronaut. You're like, oh yeah, we still do that. I forgot about that.
I do know real live astronauts because I did live in the DC area for a while, went to sci-fi conventions, and those guys are real nerds, like in the best sense of everything. Like it's great. A friend of mine comes out of a panel once and goes, "Hey Andy, you ever see the show The Big Bang Theory?" I'm like, yeah, once or twice. I didn't like it. It's like, man, you would have been much better on the panel that I was just on than the guy who was on the panel. We did a Big Bang Theory panel. It was a theoretical scientist in there who's never seen the show.
That's a show. That's a show about smart people for stupid people.
Yeah.
So,
it's a terrible show. I don't recommend it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that at the height of the Cold War, the one kind of good thing about it, right, the rivalry between the U.S. and the USSR, is that stuff like space travel was kind of funneled into that notion of like bipolar, not in the geopolitical sense of bipolar. And also the other
sometimes the other way too. Yeah.
Well, Lyndon Johnson, manic depressive personality, but that's
the most relatable things about him. Thank you.
Yeah. No, but so funneled into that bipolar rivalry, space travel becomes one of those things that's just like another Cold War thing that people throw back and forth, but they actually funneled money into it because you don't want cosmonauts kind of fucking walking around on the moon, and we're not walking around on the moon because that's
for all mankind. Like what KT brought up, that's like it's speculative fiction like based around this concept, and it's incredibly well done. It's made by it's Ronald D. Morris. So it's the guy that brought back Battlestar Galactica better than ever, and the guy that basically made Star Trek: The Next Generation great.
Yes, wrote all the Klingon episodes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I do think that's really worth pointing is that we wouldn't have even cared about space if it wasn't for a way to make it a war. Although I do want to say with Emo Dragon, I agree. I love space travel. I hate the billionaire space race, but much like the billionaire submarine thing, they could put themselves in all kinds of shoddy ass shit and shoot themselves wherever they want. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Well,
Elon, go check out this. Nobody's landed on the sun yet.
The British billionaire, the British billionaire in the Titan had previously gone in Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin thing when they sent all of them to space, like the billionaire privatized space rocket or whatever. Like he was in that. He was in that.
I wanted that.
And then he went to the the depths and fucking imploded. But it's crazy. It's not the other way around. It's like you get into trouble on Earth, you don't get into trouble in space apparently.
Well, so here's the space. Your major concern with space is going to be the complete opposite of your concern with being in the ocean. In the ocean, you've got pressure coming in. In space, you have to make sure that you can keep yourself from going out. So it's like, I think I would be more afraid of being crushed than released out into space.
Well, so much of space. So, all right. So, getting back to the film Interstellar, which we're here to talk about. So much of space is the thinnest ever margin of just not getting killed immediately, because space is trying to kill you literally all the time. And I feel like, and again, some of it is because of our popular fictions. As much as I adore Star Trek, we've just sort of like, oh yeah, that part of it isn't as important, et cetera, et cetera. That this does a good job of showing that. It does a good job of showing like how thin the margins can be for look at why he shoots himself into the black hole like in the first place, right? You know, it's just like literally no, it's a matter of mass conservation. It's conservation of energy. She's literally not going to be able to make it to the actual
third
planet.
law. Newton's third law.
although that spaceship is ill-fitted for exactly a black hole, which is again like going underwater. It becomes like a. Although I guess he avoids the singularity by swinging around.
And I also appreciate that Anne Hathaway says that line pretty much, where she's like, she and Matthew McConaughey are talking when they're in the ship, and you know she's about to go into the cryo freezer. And she's like, she's talking about nature, and she's like, well, it's humans that are evil. And he's like, you don't think nature could be evil? And she's like, you know, nature could be terrifying and it could kill you, but not evil. And you know what I mean? Like, I really like that exchange that they had, because that's like a science mind versus, I think, like a adventurer mind, right? Like an adventurer mind is trying to conquer nature itself, whereas a scientist is perfectly fine if I think they're not perfectly fine, but like, you know, like understands that nature could kill you and doesn't see that necessarily as an evil force that needs to be overcome in that same way.
Yeah, and
that's that frontier mindset for sure. Yeah.
The two major failures of this experiment are humanity based. The lie from the original scientist and Matt Damon. Like, ultimately, this movie sometimes asks us if we should even be saved.
Well, exactly, because so that's what's one of the criticisms of this film, and something by people who I respect the opinion of, are that it has like too much of that, like, you know, cowboys on the frontier mentality, when it's sort of like, well, hold on a second, maybe we should be asking whether like it was a good run, everybody. That like we're just gonna spread like locusts to these other planets. And I was like, wow, that's a really dire way of looking at it. But
like, you know, when we get to these other planets, can we actually like you know, we specifically evolved in this environment right here. Would a planet, even if it does, you know, have oxygen and water on it, could we eat the fruit there without immediately dying? Could we eat the meat there without immediately dying? Because of whatever, you know, forms evolution took on that particular planet.
Well, which is the same problem that people got into with actual colonization. You'd go to the Americas suddenly, and then
I was just gonna say, same problem when you run into like new flora and fauna like in different countries. Look at the attempted colonization from Spain and whatnot. You know, okay, suddenly they're getting like attacked by these new diseases and stuff, and they're, you know, spreading diseases that they have that are not prevalent there, and you've got invasive species. You know, like. Sure,
that's what we are.
Which is totally what we are. Absolutely, 100%. We're the kudzu vine of interstellar travel.
which makes it cool through line between you know, Independence Day, which kind of has similar. I felt like when they talk about
the aliens are right.
No, but he's like, no, in Independence Day, they're like, you know, these are like locusts, right? Like it's almost like the blight, like they're coming down to, you know, devour all our resources. But the implication is that we're kind of doing the same thing, but like a bit slower. Like, you know what I mean?
But it's
like,
good when we do it.
Yeah.
I definitely watch Children of Men being like, what a wonderful utopia we will have for ourselves. Oh, it's a bad thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I did find that Mark Twain quote, because I think that's what we keep coming back to, because we can pick this movie apart and be like, well, this. It was first get your facts straight, then distort at your leisure. And I think because this film gets so much right, what it doesn't get right is like, you know, it still doesn't affect the film in a tangible way, in my opinion.
I think why it works on a larger level is tying it to human emotion and human connection, right? I mean, that's like, it would just be another like deep sci-fi thing that like four of us would care about that otherwise. But then by the same token, are parts of it hokey? Yes, absolutely. But if you're dealing with like, you know, human emotion, you get a little bit of like a hokey dispensation.
I actually desperately wanted to ask all three of you this question about the human connection. What the fuck about the sun, though?
No,
Once he turns into Casey Affleck, is a real quick.
He turns it from, which somehow he looks kind of like enough. Timothy Chalamet and Casey Affleck have a similar enough facial structure that it's like, oh, you know what? Like, I know that this is Casey Affleck, the fucking, you know, creepy version of Ben Affleck, but like it still works somehow.
But
And I also wonder if like it'd be funny if they had like a connection where like Matt Damon was really the father or something. He's like, I wanted.
Wow, that's quite the twist.
I wanted to have my own Affleck. I'm sorry.
But Coop is just like, I got to get back to Murph, and like he has 2 kids.
Well, that's just it, right? Like, okay, so you get like a tale of like, here's how it can go very differently for 2 children basically growing up in the same household. Like that one is basically the post-blight equivalent of a prepper, and the other one saves humanity.
Well,
But even
it's also,
still,
he's
probably doesn't
very
give a shit about
Matthew
the son.
McConaughey is very woke because it's the daughter that he favors, right? Like he's not like my son's gonna grow up to be something.
Well, he realized his son was a fuck up pretty early in the movie, and
you
he's just
can't
like, "Oh,
even
but your
farm,
daughter."
right? You can't even go to farm. I like that they have farm school. They're like, Dad, I passed all my classes in farm school, which there are like agricultural colleges, but like
that is a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but in this like farm school is like what most people are going to aspire to.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dad, I passed most of my courses, but I can take the other one again. It's like, bro, you suck as a farmer too. Like, damn.
Also, I love how belittling they are to farming to be like, no one needs an engineer. What about agricultural technology? What about the entire science of growing? They're like, fuck that.
Except for remote control, half their equipment looks like it was made in 1970. You know, where it's like, all right, I guess it has.
I also like that. I also really like that. His whole life when he gets to the planet is based on a prank because the daughter was like, oh, he really liked that farmhouse. He really liked farming. You guys should move him into the farm. And he gets there, and the guy's like, oh, we heard you really liked farming. And he's like, I would be so mad at my daughter. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like,
that's a pretty good long game prank, though.
You know that I hated the farm.
but also at the same time, that would also, like that was home, technically. And being kind of alienated and far away from those that you love and coming back sort of kind of, it's kind of a way to feel a little more grounded.
Well,
yeah, but she was also clowning him too. I mean,
it's the old story of like Cincinnatus, right? Like he'd helped in Rome, like he led the army, and then he went back to his farm, and he had no desire to lead a whole nation or like an empire or anything. He just like, I want to go back to my farm. But Matthew McConaughey in this very much did not want to go back to his farm.
No,
but I feel like Nolan wanted that kind of bookend of like he said he was gonna go home. Even though it's not home, he went home.
Well, and you get that cool visual of like, oh, it's the farmhouse, but it's in this space cylinder. Like
like a Babylon 5 or something.
Like I liked how like when there's like the stray baseball hit and it breaks the window, it's like because it's up. Like I think that's kind of funny and cool.
That's awesome.
It's very wholesome.
Yeah. But and I love the fact that they got the space cylinder just like in Babylon 5, which is a great show.
And Elysium too. Elysium, which a lot of people slept on, but the guy that made was it?
I haven't watched
District
that
17?
in years. So,
it's good. Yeah. It's got the same design. It's got that same 2001 design.
Yeah.
Neil District 9. Was it District something?
Neil Blomkamp.
District 9. Yeah, Neil Blomkamp, who was supposed to make one of the new Alien movies, and like that didn't happen.
Yeah, he was supposed to make the third one.
I was like, that's the one guy that like I would like to see do that.
Yeah, his storyboards are amazing. If y'all have not seen them, go onto Twitter and you can find them.
I guess
Elysium's pretty interesting and is one of the only other science fictions I can think of that have that same design. That's all 2001 for sure.
The one criticism that I guess I would have of this movie is that like they find like I feel like the end is kind of a little bit tacked on. Like I feel like it's just like it's very neat.
Yeah.
Like. And I find this whole thing where he discovers, the Tesseract, and he's like in there, and like that part is really cool. But then they kind of are just like, oh, and they solved it, and here's a new planet, yay! And it's like that part of it maybe to me felt a little bit like I wish there was something else that had happened to get him there, right? Like he just wakes up and everything's kind of fine, and like he's like, oh wow, they say like I blacked out, I got back here, and
but that's the thing about having exposure to the dimension of time is that like you can where the probabilities are not probabilities, they're certainties. So again, that bothered me first time I saw it, didn't bother me at all this time. Like I was like, oh no, I get it. And then also the whole like him stealing the ship and then like taking off to go like meet up with her. I like that part more too, even though way Spielberg-y.
I feel like that bit, I feel like the point right where she says, go get her, like that had to have been a studio note. I feel like too many audience members were like, but what about Anne Hathaway? And they're like, tie it up. It's going to drive people crazy.
See, I feel like it's still open-ended because it's like she's there and you're like, all right, well, she's there. Does he get there? I don't know.
It's open-ended just enough to have a sequel.
Right.
Because yeah, I mean, with the whole thing, the question is like time dilation, because you go through the event horizon, how much time's going to pass because of the black hole?
Right.
How much time has slowed down with her being in the black hole?
Which this movie does very well, because you get the whole thing.
One of the wild things about say Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, which the conceit of the show was a spaceship gets stuck in a black hole, and then the Federation that it was in has collapsed and gets rescued by pirates. And so there's no Federation, but here's the only Federation starship in this post-apocalyptic future in space. Not a great show, but the conceit of the whole thing is that the because they were stuck in in a black hole's gravitational pull, time has moved differently on board the ship than outside the ship, and we don't know how much time has passed with Anne Hathaway getting out of the black hole. So maybe they arrived just about the same time. Maybe they didn't. We don't know. It's questions I have.
Exactly. It's open-ended, and if you're someone that needs I don't feel like it's a tidy ending at all. I think far from it. I think it's sort of there's a lot of questions. Questions that in lesser hands, you'd be like, cool, can't wait to see the next one. But it's no, don't make a sequel to it though. Don't.
Yeah. The only I'd give them props of the sequel is that a tiny little bit of blight, the algae is on someone's shoe or something like that.
Oh,
And they step out of the ship or whatever. They're like, and then the blight just starts spreading. They're like, oh no.
It feels like a good compromise within what is still not tonally too abrupt with this film to be like, oh, what did happen with Anne Hathaway's character? Did she make it? Does it matter? To tack that on the end.
But just because she made it doesn't mean it all turns out well, It's and that's I really so jumping off that point, the time dilation of them having to not just worry about energy and conservation of energy, but also conservation of time. That I've never seen that in a major motion picture in this way, where they're like, oh, to go down and visit this water planet, it's going to take this many years to do that. And then someone gets left behind, and then he's yeah, it was 21 years or 23 years, whatever it was.
Well, there's a tick, there's a ticking sound or something that each tick when they have in the soundtrack.
It's a day on Earth. Yeah. And they get down there and it's the person they're looking for got by those waves, and it's oh no, but that happened a minute and a half ago.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because it does a great job of I obviously I knew it was coming this time, but first time I was well, the first thing I thought I was is that a wave? Is the first thing I thought when I saw it.
The first thing I thought too.
I was
yeah.
Oh, that's totally a wave. They're totally boned.
I can't swim, so maybe that's it.
Right. Exactly. But I like that it presents different puzzles that way of well, they need to get the Anne Hathaway's character runs to get the black box, right? Because if they don't have the black box, then they lose all the data and it's all for nothing. But then they lose that other dude.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
Yeah, they lose God, he looks like a Wish version of Jake Gyllenhaal. Ben Cox. It was Ben Cox, is the actor's name.
What if you got cast in a movie with that dude? And he's so I saw the Interstellar episode.
He would be, you know what? I would be I am the Temu version of Drew Barrymore. It's nice to meet you.
Well done. But I like that, again, not just conservation of mass, conservation of energy, but conservation of time. And the fact that you never see that, because it's considered too heady a concept. Because the idea is the average public is going to go over their head and they're not going to relate to it. But I think Nolan does a great job of showing it, because it's oh, they come back just on this one trip and he's yeah, I waited for you and I didn't think you were coming back and I slept for a while and this. I was oh damn, and then all for yeah, we lost the dude and we didn't really get what we were looking for, and also that planet's screwed.
Well, and he's it's crazy that he's it's been 21 years, and it's I have to think about how insane you would go if you had to sit in the ship by yourself for 21 years.
Well, he had one of the robots, right? No, or were they both down on the planet?
I think
he had one. I think Case was up on the ship with him.
Yeah,
and Lydia Tarr was.
Who's the least chatty one of the two of them?
I'd love if they had replaced Tars with Lydia Tar. Like that would be my ideal. And she's
Yeah,
talking
it was the Tar cut.
talking about how she used to be a composer and got canceled. And they're like, "Oh my god,
Look,
can you?"
I'm going into hibernation. I can't stand this.
There's a very good plot line in the Doctor Who Matt Smith line, The Girl Who Waited, about the couple that gets separated and the difference between time and how it really fucking ruins Rory's brain. But I also wanted to tell you to watch an anime, because I will always tell people to watch an anime. It's called Voices from a Distant Star, and it does exactly what we're talking about here. It has a girl who goes into space to fight because the Earth is fucked up, and her friend stays. He's 15. She continues to, he stays young while she ages, and they write letters back and forth to each other between the time dilation. It's so good, but so sad.
All right.
Definitely worth watching.
So I find like in this movie, like the Tesseract part the most interesting, because it feels like it's like the culmination of everything with time in it and everything with quantum gravity. And so I found this clip of Matthew McConaughey talking about this movie from like more recently. These guys are kind of nerdy and they seem very into very into this movie, but the alternative that you could get with Matthew McConaughey talking about this scene is with Lex Friedman, and I fucking can't stand that guy, so I picked this one.
The robot did book it. That robot for being a wall, that robot could move, man.
I don't even know why they bothered walking. Just go out on him to begin with.
Just
asterisk your ass over there.
Didn't
it was
save
like
the other
Eagles in Lord of the Rings.
Didn't save the other guy.
Not to him.
He let the other guy die, but he rescued her.
Yeah. I mean, given the same choice. Sorry, peace and love.
Tell me your thoughts on Interstellar. It's been 6 years since it came out. I think it's one of the greatest films ever. I also think it's Christopher Nolan's best film. I feel like it's a divisive movie in some ways, and the people that love Interstellar, like me, they really love it.
Love it.
They really love it. What are your thoughts now, 6 years later?
Well, one, what you said, there are people probably now more than any film I've done in the last 2 years. It's Interstellar lovers that come up to me, and they don't just come up and go, "I love the movie." They stop me, put two hands on my shoulders, and look me in the eye and go, "No, dude, Interstellar." I'm like, "Yeah, man, I love it too." They're like, "No, dude, listen to me. Changed my life, man. Yeah, seen it 19 times." Whoa. So, I need to ask them. You tell me what it's about, because, we try to figure that out all the way through. Look, I love the film. I working with Chris is, you're gonna be in an epic film working with Nolan. He creates the rules to these worlds. Like, he created the rules. My deal with him is I would always go to him and go, "Okay, as the pilot, head astronaut here, I need to know the rules of how time works in this scene," stuff I would know. And a lot of times I go, "What is it?" And he'd go, "I don't know." I go, "What do you mean you don't know? You wrote it." He goes, "I just wrote it. Let me think about it." He'd always come back like 4 or 5, 6 days later with an answer, because he had gone away and thought about it. But he creates the whole constructs of these worlds that have their own set of rules. And then you have to watch, do you follow the rules that he set up in that world throughout? That's my job as the actor, to go, well, am I following the rules of this world where he's created a completely new set of rules throughout the journey of my character, so I don't look like the ass, someone breaking the rules, and then there's a break in the story. That's a writer's job too. Writers sit around and go, well, you establish this, you can't do that thing because that would abolish the truth of what we already established. So yeah, I love the movie too, but I really love the reaction. You're right. The most people now that come up to me probably is for that movie, that do the old shoulder grab where they turn me around face to face and go, Interstellar. And I go, yeah. And they go, no, dude, Interstellar. They like yell it at me. I'm like, yes. So you tell me, what do you love about it?
Oh man. You know what? You said it. So Nolan, right. He's always fucking with time. Okay. and he creates these worlds, and they have rules. And I think the fun part in all of his films are the rules being followed at all times, right? It's like, you know, you watch the film and you watch it again, and then like by the 5th or 6th time, you're now on like deep Reddit threads about where the rules may have potentially been violated. You know, and I think to do those deep dives on these films is amazing. The reason I love Interstellar, I think it's like beautifully shot, obviously. You know, it's about love. I think I had my son in 2014, the year the movie came out. I had my second son in 2016. I think because of that, it hits a little bit different for me, and I get emotional watching that film. Can you please, though, from your perspective, the last question, because I know you got to roll, but the Tesseract scene, what the fuck's going on there?
Tesseract scene where I'm
in the 4-dimensional cube, and you're pulling on the strings.
So number one, that's a life-size set. I'm suspended 60 feet off a concrete floor. And the Tesseract, it's life-size. So I'm having to really, they're hard to move and bang. And in post-production, they put in the infinite reflections of how far it went. You know, what am I trying to do there? I'm trying to be heard. I'm trying to get my daughter to hear me, to see me, but I'm unheard. I'm trying to reach out, but I can't be felt. It's I'm, you know, Cooper's in jail, basically, at that point, for me. And then also trying to figure a way back. What are clues? I think in that scene is where he sees clues that his daughter, what she knew or didn't know. So yeah, it is a love story. And that's one of Chris Nolan's best gifts. It's very hard to tell an epic tale that has so much sci-fi extravaganza that you can just go to for the visual candy and go, wow. But also come in and get a personal
sci-fi extravaganza
where you give a damn about.
I was gonna
who's
say
in
we
it.
got her name.
That can make you think about your own birth, your own child, and what if you missed that much time in their life and had to catch back up with it? What would that be like? So that's when Chris does his work the best. That's what he does well, is he gets to the head, through the heart, but also always fun for the mind watching his movies, because they're just so extravagant and the sets are so wild, and his scale is so extremely epic.
The production design is pretty astounding in this. Like, I mean, everything, like, you know, we were talking like right before that about like the robots, right? And how they're like, no, they're modular. It's all like kind of like 4-dimensional shapes, and they stretch out. They can grab things and do things, but they also kind of like chillax when it's time to navigate.
Yeah, they like fold in like a R2D2 droid into the part of the cockpit.
They're like made by IKEA.
They refuse to use any green screens on this, by the way. So all the production design is actually like the places, like whether it's the spaceships that they built life size, the Tesseract, or like, you know, going to Iceland or whatever to film the cold planet.
I think that shows. I mean, and we just talked about that with Independence Day, right? How the most miniatures like ever of like any film. Like, again, and this goes back to like just me constantly dissing on CGI, I guess, of just like how it just looks like weightless and plastic, even when it's done well. Like, I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it, because I feel like people are like, no, it's fine to CGI it. No, don't do that.
That's like saying fix it in post.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, thinking about that scene, I'm so surprised that the scene with the Tesseract is a real set, because when I was watching it, both the person and myself were like, Jesus, he's really interacting so well with his environment for what is like an absurd environment you have nothing to pull on. Like, oh, imagine you're inside a 4-dimensional thing affecting time and space. But I think the choice of McConaughey is very important to why that works, is because you want somebody who A, can be a space cowboy, and B, has definitely taken ketamine.
Hey, you know, he says some people have called me the space cowboy.
Yeah, I mean, remember when he got arrested for playing bongos naked in a trailer park?
My first line that I thought of when I was seeing this is that's what I love about these wave planets, man. You get older, I stay the same age. All right, all right, all right.
All right.
Oh, you're trying to crib from my review, huh?
No, I posted that like the second I saw this movie in the chat. You can't feel my. I literally have it as a Facebook status. I
This would have made such a great clip until this little internecine battle started.
Oh no!
I would never steal your jokes. They're not funny enough for me to steal.
Oh.
First with Ben, now with me. You're gonna get dunked.
Yeah,
We're entering the
anyway,
burn zone.
I agree. The Tesseract seems incredible, and it's hard to believe that that's largely practical effects. But I think that, again, as someone that, recreationally researches quantum theory, it is nice to see a representation of that I buy that. Like that is you would need to have some modeling of some kind to be able for your brain to understand what it was you're looking at. And in that, of course, that'd be factored in. And I think it's most notable that the entire time through this entire film, there's no alien life forms, right? It's just us. It's just us. And it's just him literally affecting his own timeline the way that he can, which is gravity. And I think that it gives you all the clues early on, but how in the world would you ever guess that to begin with? Because you're
it's great.
I don't think it's a ghost movie.
Yeah, it's a great second watch. Because the dialogue is so well written that it's really hard to pick up. A lot of times I pick stuff up on the first watch that a lot of people miss. And
you're just built different.
And this is not one of those movies. I really do appreciate that. It does not happen often, and I always like it when it does.
So I wanted to this is a clip of them building the Tesseract set.
Nice.
Because I don't know how the conversation is gonna roll back around to that.
Probably won't.
Go right in.
We would need a Tesseract ourselves to make it roll back to that.
Oh.
Well, you can't travel back in time. I learned that. So I can't just, go back to a few minutes ago.
And love is literally the inflection point that allows this to happen, which actually makes sense if you think about human consciousness. And there's a lot of it, more speculative quantum theory that says that that kind of stuff's happening all the time anyway, and that human consciousness uses that as its own form of language.
I think
what is even
theoretical
right?
theorist John Lennon kind of come up with that, right?
No, what is dreaming if not connecting to other people through these points where at least in your own consciousness you're kind of reevaluating an endless spectrum of moments
because it is mapped. It's just it's not mapped in a way that you would think of as being like a star map, but it is mapped. And again, there's a whole thing about multiversal theory with that.
Well, I was gonna say and finally, new rule: if you're gonna tell me that the fifth dimension is love, okay.
But let's just do a reset here. Holy crap,
dude!
Okay, holy crap, that was amazing. That's the argument for Christopher Nolan right there, where it's we're gonna do this like a 1940s epic. We're gonna build the thing, which is what?
And they won the Academy Award and BAFTA for Best Visual Effects, and you can see wow, very much so. Somebody in the comments, Abby Garside said "theme park ride now, please," and I am also strap me in. I want to go to that. It was so grandiose.
I really like when it clicks in his brain and then he starts going through the the actual continuum of it, the endless versions of her room as moments in time, and he's like, I get it, and he's like, but you can tell he lets himself go at that moment, and it's almost like Matthew McConaughey himself is in this moment of realization, and he's like, take me through this fucking this box that you designed.
Well, he's got a good approach too, and this you showed this in the earlier clip for us of he's like, well, you tell me what it means, man. And it was just oh no, that's great, because that way he doesn't have to explain these advanced theories. He just gets to
I do joke about the takes ketamine, but he is the kind of person who is connecting to that kind of information on his daily. So when you say to an actor, in the scene, I need you to draw from things in your life. This is a really rich person for a scene that is peculiar and could be so stale, and it
could
the
go
crux
really
of our movie.
wrong. No, you're totally right. If you get the wrong actor in there, be bad.
I mean, just imagine Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
He'd do the wire work well, but
Yes.
Well, Matthew McConaughey's body language throughout this whole movie and throughout his whole he's very like a lot of like his tensions, right? His moment of tension. He's always doing like the football coach squat, and he's doing that as he's trying to get his daughter's attention. Like he's like kind of leaning over like this. He's like, come on, like trying to do that. It's this like frantic, frenetic moment of tension, and then the second he lets that go, and he's able to just kind of be like, wait a second, I get it. This is an endless continuum of space and time coming together to a physical dimension. You're like, it fully releases the tension. I think I think that's why I appreciated it so much, because it's like, oh, my guy's flying now. Like,
yeah. And this movie starts like 45 minutes of, Blight, but then it's 2 hours of like, it's so tense. And that's the first time you're actually safe.
Yeah, you're right, because it's I mean, talk about a theme park ride, right? Like, it's a total roller coaster for like the entire time before, and then you're just like, oh, okay.
and there's also like complete story arcs that in the movie too. So like which is kind of nice, because it makes the time seem to go by, because like each problem becomes its own little story arc, and it does actually build up to something, which is nice.
Well, and each of those worlds is like a completely different story. Like, I mean, and you could make a movie out of the entire, like, she crashes on that wave planet, but like, there's so many questions you could have about that wave planet. And is there some kind of technology that if they were ready for something like that, they could have harnessed or something? And
yeah,
I mean, not
could Matthew McConaughey have pulled out a surfboard?
they get the fucking OceanGate guy to build the Titan, but for that planet. But then there's the whole thing about Matt Damon's been in space for like a really long time by himself, and the isolation of that. Like he doesn't have to deal with. Well, he hasn't had the benefit of what Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway and the old guy they left behind and and the guy that got taken by the waves. Like, they all have a sense of community. They're all talking. It's not even just one and two people, right? Like, it's all of them together. He hasn't had that, and he's stranded on this fucking ice planet and not willing to just let his fucking resources dry up.
He killed his robot friend.
Yeah, well, that robot friend probably got really annoying. Like, that's the one person you talk to, and
Hal, very much, Is it Ren and Stimpy that first said space madness?
Space madness. Yeah,
it's a real thing, though.
It is.
But Matt Damon, like as the villain in that, is still a sympathetic character for the fact that he's been in that isolation, right? Like, he's not acting from an irrational place. He's acting from a place of self-preservation. And you can assume that, I mean, he's probably kind of a dick because he knew the entire time that, they were going to be stuck out there and they were going to have to spread their seed on a new planet or whatever. But like, that was always the purpose of it. But like, he's not like an evil character. He's a character acting in self-preservation. We just want Matthew McConaughey to survive.
Well, I think that's the whole story of us as a humanity. Like, we wind up on another planet. We'll probably kill something to be there, and we'll do it exactly the way that Matt Damon did it. We won't really want to look. We'll turn away. We'll equivocate, but we will still try to do it, and we're actively doing it right now.
Yeah.
I just got to say, too, that if you would have, told me 20 years ago that Matt McConaughey was like as good of a was as good of a dramatic actor as he's become, like, I would be shocked, because he's pretty much ravaged his body in that very method actor way. But between like this and like True Detective, Dallas Buyers Club, all that stuff.
Yeah, Dallas Buyers Club. I like watching him in that movie. I'm worried. Like, I felt worried that he was going to die soon. Like,
no, he looked like
of like malnutrition. Like,
it was like The Machinist with Bale.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm worried.
To the point that's like, no, you're literally risking your health for this role and to basically prove that you're. Like,
I got it to play this role, man. I got AIDS. What can I tell you?
When it's like, oh, because he wanted to be known as something more than just like the pretty himbo.
Yeah, he needed the reconnaissance.
Yeah, it's pretty astounding, and it's something that not everyone would do. Like, be like, hey, that's a good beat.
Yeah, well, when you think of Nolan, you think of like, oh, Guy Pearce. Like, that casting choice in Memento makes sense. But then you're like, McConaughey? I'm not sure.
I was like, I don't know.
He works with Matt Damon a lot, and I appreciate that he's got like Matt Damon into some positions. I think like this movie specifically, like Matt Damon kind of playing like an asshole that's not like the lead character, that's whatever, like is acting fully in self-preservation as like this guy stranded in space. Like that's a role that I don't think a lot of directors would have the confidence to put Matt Damon in, because he's kind of like a leading. I mean, I guess his stars.
He's more of a leading man, dude. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and that's how we end up getting stuck with the same 20 people playing the same roles over and over again.
Well, now I guess they just know that they can strand Matt Damon in space. Like
he's getting typecast. Yeah,
it's his Sean Bean thing. Like, you know, he's going to die at the end of every film. Well, just put Matt Damon in. Is somebody stranded in space?
Somebody stranded in space.
They're like giving him a role. They're like, listen, we need a middle-aged father. He's gonna, you know, he's really smart, and he's like, oh, so this role is not in space. We forgot to tell you. Halfway through the movie, you get stranded in space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, downsizing. You're going to be really small, but we're going to strand you in inner space. No,
but it's Ben Affleck that rescues you, and he's like, you know what? I'm in. Ben Affleck's gonna rescue me.
Don't worry, it's a zoo on Mars.
I love the Tesseract. I love the representation of it. I'm still completely blown away. That's all like physical effects, but it works. Like it's insane to do it that way, but like I'm glad he did, and that's risky. It's risky to do that, and you have to like trust your people when you're have a vision, and your vision is literally like, no, we're gonna make this thing that does not exist within traditional space.
Because if Spielberg did it, it would have came out like it would have been all CG'd, and it would have looked like something Steve Ditko would have drew back in the '60s for Doctor Strange.
Right.
So a little bit like AI, the film that Spielberg did wind up making.
Yeah.
It's also it's kind of fascinating to me. Oof. It's kind of fascinating to me that like a couple years later, Marvel has they had the Tesseract as one of like the Infinity Stone things where she's like living in there because they had to sacrifice her or whatever. Completely different.
They just didn't want to call it the Cosmic Cube too.
Yeah,
like because Cosmic Cube is like what? But
I'm like I can't remember the Tesseract. Come on, give me the Cosmic Cube any day.
Basically, like a Tesseract is like any kind of higher form of technology word. Is that the agreed upon?
It's just kind of it's a cube. It's a cube like that. I mean, I guess when you're using
they chickened out of calling it the Cosmic Cube.
Oh no, I mean the word Tesseract outside of that. I think it just means like higher form of technology. So like,
it's sort of like it's a MacGuffin. Right?
Do you know, I'm worried to make fun of things because I made fun of unobtainium, but then I found out that it's really what scientists call things, and I'm like, fuck me.
Yeah, scientists are nerds.
Somehow worse.
Seriously, are absolutely dweebs. I love my scientist friends. Don't get me wrong. Shout out to them because, if you're trying to do something creative, you can call them up and be like, "Hey, I'm trying to write this book where the spaceship does this maneuver like this, like fighter pilots would," and they'd be like, "You can't do that because it's in space." Like, no, it's for Star Trek, and they'd be like, "Give us 24 hours. We will explain to you how it's done," and That's just how scientists are, which is fantastic. If you're doing it for the creative process and you let them know, and they're just like, okay, yeah, we'll figure it out for you.
Well, so this is
it was answered in the comments, but for the audio listeners, it's a 4D cube, and I was waiting for Andy to finish before saying that. But but what I love is if you look up just Tesseract, people also ask, what is so special about a Tesseract? Which I think is hilarious because that's the internet right there.
Well, speaking of the scientist part of it, this is the clip of Kip Thorne. This is the clip of Kip Thorne talking about whether time travel is possible. I kind of like went into a rabbit hole of watching videos of him talking about like relativity and whether time travel is possible and black holes and wormholes and like the different.
There's like a lifetime of work of him talking about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of wanted to. It seems like he wanted to be almost like a Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of figure where he's like the popularizer of science, but.
Yeah,
I mean, he'll go down.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Hold the phone.
All right.
Neil deGrasse Tyson though is trying to do a Carl Sagan because Carl Sagan's the OG of all that stuff.
And this guy was.
They're all just trying to be Mr. Wizard.
I'm interested in the use of time travel, wormholes theoretically, to probe the nature of reality.
We would like to probe the laws of physics through a combination of experiment and theory. But there are areas where the experiment is so challenging we can't do it with the human technology in this century. And wormholes and some aspects of the nature of space are in that domain, predictions about them. And so thought experiments, Einstein taught us, are a powerful tool for probing the nature of physics. You just ask, could, in principle, our infinitely advanced civilization, could such a civilization build a wormhole to travel from here to another galaxy? And when you ask that kind of a question, you then go into the laws of physics and you probe it mathematically, geometrically in the laws of physics, and it teaches you a lot about the nature of space and time.
How might that work conceptually from the laws of physics?
The warping of space in a wormhole is so intense. It's like the warping of space in a stretched rubber membrane. It wants to shrink, and the wormhole wants to shrink and pinch off. So when you try to travel through, you die. And so can they be held open? How do you hold them open? And so we then, in this way, discovered intimate relationship between the nature of energy and tensions on one hand, and the nature of warping of space on another hand.
Now, how does that relate to time and the possibility of time travel in either direction, to the future or to the past?
If you have wormholes, then if you move the mouth of one wormhole down near the surface of a black hole, time flows very slowly there compared to the rate of flow of time back here on Earth. And so the two mouths get out of sync. The mouth of the wormhole sits down near the surface of the black hole, and it sits there with only a few hours passing, while up here on Earth, 1 billion years pass. And so we on Earth can then go down through the wormhole and can come out near the surface of the black hole 1 billion years earlier. We can then come out and go back up in the external universe 1 billion years earlier than we went down. So if you have wormholes, there's a natural way to make a time machine. So this was wonderful when my students and I discovered this. I was very excited. But then probing more deeply and talking with other colleagues, I was forced to realize that there's a universal mechanism that when you're trying to turn a wormhole into a time machine in this way, a universal mechanism that always creates a violent explosion that very likely destroys the wormhole right at the moment when it begins to make time travel possible. And so time machines, if you try to create them, appear to self-destruct. We simply do not have the understanding of the laws of physics to be able to speculate about that quantitatively yet. We have to have a much deeper understanding of quantum gravity to get the answer, whether that's possible.
Yep.
I like how I imagine just Elon Musk being like, self-destruct, you say? Well, I will put resources into it.
Hold my beer.
Will the wormhole lock itself and set itself on fire? Yes. I'm in there. I'm working on this technology.
What's so crazy about what he's describing is that it's observable to us to a point. Like the whole concept of gravity, like gravity inside a black hole is infinite. And we know that it affects time. Like we could even see it with our GPS. So GPS satellites go outside our orbit and they're not as close to the center of the Earth. And so gravity isn't affecting them as much.
Yeah, we also saw this with Mark Kelly and his twin brother.
That's right.
Did you hear about this? They sent up his brother to the International Space Station for a year and observed the differences, and his brother did not age as much as Mark Kelly did.
Oh my God.
Well, that's what politics will do to you.
Hey, everybody.
Whoa.
No, I was going to say we use Einstein's theory of relativity to make the formula to correct our GPS satellites so that they're at the same time, because we could observe that gravity is affecting the time we experience in orbit. So it's like, oh my God, he's so close to not sounding insane, and he's talking about time travel.
Yeah. Well, and that's speculative quantum theory. I mean, that's like in a nutshell. And honestly, like when you get with time dilation, like it is time travel. It's just only in one direction.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
But the
There's
idea
a
of
great
like
Stargate episode about that.
you can't observe it. We do not have the tools to observe it, and fundamentally our consciousness would not be able to understand it. Is the problem. So therefore, there's this idea that like it's interpreted in these other ways and through these other functions that maybe somewhat ascribed to, magic or whatever. Just like how they thought phlogiston was an element that caused combustion before they understood the principles of combustion in that same way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I find it fascinating. His thing when he talks about relativity, he's like, it's actually not as much that time is relative; it's that time is personal. So it's your own sense of like your own consciousness and the speed in which the speed.
He's just ornery. That's why.
No, but like the speed in which time goes is personal to you, right? Like as in like you're interpreting it a certain way. That
Your
other people
perception
might
of
not.
it, your interpretation of it, so on and so on. And it's going to be unique in the interpretation of any consciousness that's around. Therefore, as an observable metric, we lack the capacity to be able to rationalize it in any objective way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of us haven't even figured out how to get places on time to start with. So you know what I mean? Time travel.
Time travel would be lovely. You mean I
Time
can't just
travel? I'd like to time travel to when my alarm went off and not hit the snooze button.
I can't just fly around the Earth backwards really fast? Damn
Superman
it.
has taught us.
The more you run backwards, the more time moves backwards. Like it's the Forrest Gump scene where he's running, but it's just backwards.
Or in the scene in Superman where Superman does that exact thing, or like Superman 3. Which one is it?
No, it was the first one. It was the first
the
one.
Donner. Is it the first one?
Yeah, the Donner one. Lois Lane dies, and Superman gets mad, flies around the Earth.
A Donner Party eats everybody.
Yes.
It's a Donner one.
Richard Donner, head of the Donner Party. Yes. By the way, still my favorite Superman.
Yeah, I'm so glad he made movies after that trip.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I'm glad they didn't eat him.
Yeah, I mean, this is a long movie for sure, but I think it
feel long.
It exactly. I think it justifies it. I think it's a what else is a long movie? Fucking 2001. I know it's like one of my favorite movies of all time. It ain't short. I mean, shorter than Drive My Car, but.
I mean,
interesting.
It's shorter than this movie by like half an hour, but I mean that's not like nitpicking to anything with it. Like it is. I mean, it is a long movie, but this movie really extends out the. But it doesn't feel because time is relative. You know what I mean? Like,
there's no fat in this movie. Like
some movies feel like they take a really long time, and they're not as long because time is relative. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, like Seven Samurai, this movie, or Until the End of the World. Like this movie has enough going on with it that each section of the movie kind of wraps up nicely and moves us into the next part.
Yeah.
So it is. It works that way. There's a flow to it that makes you there's no lag, there's no fat, there's no if they actually took the time to explain the blight, that would have completely destroyed this movie.
Well, then it's about the blight, right?
Yeah.
And also, I like that they're like, oh, well, we all know that the space race was, largely contrived of that whole that's a crazy scene because there's entire movies that would be like based around that, right? Where it's like, whoa, they're redacting history in this way, but it's for the overall greater good. And there's the cool question of, okay, well, if you lie to the people to protect them, to blah blah blah, et cetera, different movie, but it's just a thrown off little minute and a half exchange at a parent teachers conference.
I think Christopher Nolan kind of does come to the conclusion that it might not be the worst thing to lie to people though about because the secret NASA does in the end triumph with his daughter that must have been an awkward thing though, like explaining hey, by the way, I work for secret NASA. Not like SNASA, really. We call it SNASA. I work for Secret NASA, and the moon landing did happen. And actually, we have 20 minutes. We have to get onto this other planet. All as many of us as we can. We have to leave. And they're like, "Wait, we did land on the moon." And she's like, "There's no time to discuss that whole thing."
There's literally no time to explain. Just get in the capsule.
Even at the beginning, when they find Secret NASA, he's like, "We're the best kept secret. How'd you find us?" And then they go and show him the rest of the lab. There's 125 people who administratively work in that building.
Yeah.
How do we find you? There's a town that works here.
It's a mountain. It's a mountain. It's the same mountain that they filmed Stargate in.
There it is.
Yeah, no, it's and the weird thing is the president in Stargate, the guy who's the president of the United States, is in space, in secret NASA in this movie. It's weird, but I digress about Stargate. It's Cheyenne Mountain, which is actually a complex in Colorado, I believe. An actual base, and you see the entrance very briefly, and it was just long enough for me to go, oh, I know that place because of Stargate, and so it's like, okay, so they built secret NASA inside this mountain, so that makes sense, and they all live inside the mountain where they have their own kind of ecosystem to be able to live. That makes perfect sense.
No Don S. Davis, unfortunately.
No, sadly. R.I.P. By the way.
R.I.P. to a legend. Yeah. I mean, like, I think you can explain away some of that. Not what Andy just said, but the whole like where these people like buy food and like interact with other human beings, so and so with like. Nobody cares. Nobody cares because like
cares.
They got like again, space travel has like been retconned. That like oh no, that was largely just as which unfortunately, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about like lots of not the audience for this show, of course, but like online leftists and liberals that like are just so concerned with like domestic issues and social policy, of which I'm concerned with as well, that they think it's an either or proposition for space travel. That like take that to the nth degree. They would never conceive of the fact that anyone would be into space travel because they've been told it doesn't exist, more or less, or that it's a contrivance for some parasocial diplomatic function of the Industrial Revolution.
Well, I feel like I want to put a caveat there. I do feel like there's a decent fear that if we let the plebeians think that interstellar space travel and rehabilitating an alternative planet is really even possible, they'll continue to trash the one we're on like the fucking idiots that they are.
Let's go nuts. Yeah, who cares about? I'm gonna throw away all my recycling in the garbage can. Yeah. I'm gonna pour all the bacon grease down the sink. All right.
It's pretty dire, and this is really just a thought. And I think that's probably what triggers that it's unrealistic, but I can see that.
I get it. And look, there's always a danger that like when you get people involved, the baser nature of people is not temporarily embarrassed geniuses. I'm sorry, it just isn't. And this is again something that the left especially doesn't seem to realize is like, no. Not everyone isn't a good person by default unless they're a billionaire. That's not true. There's plenty of people that are like working class people that are racist idiots. And like that's a very real thing. There's plenty of people that believe exactly your political beliefs and are some of the worst people ever. And so in that same token, if you look at like things from a pure altruism perspective and like, what I suppose is like a futurist philosophy, what do you tell the populace? Well, it's most likely that the populace would be lied to. Because you don't want them involved.
You don't think we're being lied to now, do you?
I know, never.
And that's the point of the percentage of truth setting on TARS that is so compelling. Is that you know what, 10% is kind of necessary for survival, and even when he does dial it back, he still leaves 5%.
That's something that I have a problem with what started with like the diplomatic leaks and whatnot, that people think that all information should be free. No, it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. You don't want that. You say you want that, and you don't want that, and you don't know what to do with it. Like and again, this elevation of the individual that we've done through social media and conditioning in that way. Everyone thinks that if there's this idea, if people just had the facts, then they would believe the way I believe. No, not true. None of that is true. And so. Again, interesting. That's kind of a throwaway point just to establish, like the grounding of the reality that he's coming from. But it makes sense there would have to be a secret NASA if you're in a situation like this. Because if nothing else, if you have a disinterested populace that has basically given up on dreaming and given up on like okra, apparently it's the last year for okra. I don't really care about okra, so it doesn't really affect me that much. But like, you're gonna have people like that are adopting a Dust Bowl philosophy, which is that none of that matters. I'm just trying to put food on the table.
100%.
It's kind of crazy that again, that's enough to carry like a movie or two, right? I mean, that's just like that's just establishing criteria before we get into this other
Oh yeah, I mean, just talking about the world of the Blight, you have to assume that like there isn't even the capacity for there. So we know there are no Marines because he says that there isn't even the capacity for war between countries over the remaining amounts of food because they can't even feed an army to fight each other. Like it's dire.
Yeah, that's pretty like again throwaway line.
But
it's like whoa.
yeah. But it's also a little bit like Shaun of the Dead, where like when we hit these like mass extinction, huge events, we're not really interested in fully believing it right away. Like we kind of want to go around and be like, it's okay. I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
you know, we do love to lie to ourselves.
The human hunger for complete self-deception is nearly bottomless.
Yeah, but I think that's why, like Andy, you said it. There's these little tiny stories that could be their own things, but they wind up just fitting into this, and it makes the movie have beats that feel complete. So 2 hours and 45 minutes feels like I read Skeleton Crew. I got a bunch of little stories and I'm full. Versus like a Marvel movie where I'm like, oh my god, will they get the whatever the fuck and kill whoever the hell already?
Come on, I got a roast in the oven.
Oh my god, is the hero gonna win?
Yeah. No, it's one of the reasons why this film works a lot. And again, this is anything heady and long with a lot of details. Oh, well, reward multiple viewings. It actually does reward multiple viewings though, because once you know kind of where it's all going, then you're like, I think there's a reasonable take on first viewing, like, oh, it's aliens, they're coming to help. Help the humans, or it's future, like whatever. There's a bunch of conclusions that you could reach to be perfectly reasonable. Where you're like, oh, maybe it's just the ghost, or even I'm sure somebody somewhere has thought. And
just love.
But then when you see like the parallax view of it, where you're like, no, from over here, from the end of the movie, from where you're at the first movie, it's not just a journey in distance; it's a journey in emotion. It's a journey of just found knowledge, really. And that's what makes it, because that's what this is ultimately. This is, it's grounded in emotion, but this is the good side of that frontier spirit, which is not to say just like the colonization aspect of it, which again is there's a whole
and also it's a bit like what science is like science is actually like understanding stuff. Like you don't understand how this book fell down. And this movie basically goes through and explains to you how the book falls down.
But you start at square one, kind of, when you have to like leave Earth to go to a different planet too. Like
but the thing is though, is it's like our understanding at the like first time through watching it, you do think it's a ghost. You do think, or if you even think about it at all, because they keep it.
It's an unexplained phenomenon. You have to go through however you deal with unexplained.
I never thought it was a ghost.
It
would have been real weird if it was a ghost. I'm just saying. It's my dead pet. The blight film.
It's my wife. My wife is back, and she's communicating to us through books and sand.
Well, I think that there's also it's hard to parse out like what is an intentional thing and what is like just kind of an unexplained phenomenon with no real answer to it. So like just the word stay, right? Like you could just be kind of like leaving out the door and think
you talking about humanity, or are you talking about there's a lot of ways you can interpret that.
Well, and also like even the decision whether to interpret it, right? Like you could be like, well, this is just a coincidence. Like a lot of science is determining what is a coincidence and what isn't, or like what is an unexplained phenomenon that's going to remain unexplained. And what isn't, right? Like, because it could just be a pattern that something falls into, and it could be like stuck in a gravity field of some kind, and that's how it happens. But it's not; it's intentional. And I think that's kind of a fascinating like realization at the end. It's like, yeah, all right, like that was an intentional message that he's trying to send to his daughter, and in this moment, and then we're like,
well, it's the uncertainty principle, right? Like so, and it's look, I know it's necessary for a Breaking Bad reference to be jumped immediately, but it's a Heisenberg effect. Where it's the act of absorbing something changes it, and that's this is very well illustrated here. Like literally,
Matthew McConaughey was the one who knocked. I get it.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of the Carl Sagan concept of that magic is just science that's not yet been explained.
Yes. Which is often like paraphrased on Star Trek too. Like you'll see that a lot where they dealing with a species that doesn't understand technology.
It's often paraphrased by me too.
Yes. Yeah, because Neutron is not just your surname.
Exactly.
Yo, by the way, this movie had Miller's Planet. They kept talking about that was the one with the wave. They're like, oh, Miller's Planet, and then they're like, it's next to a neutron star. And I was like, and then they're trying to get off the world. Like this movie does feel like it's tailored to the show's last
secret
name.
Messages, secret messages.
And there were oaks all over that last planet. No.
And I do love
Over that last world, you mean?
Yeah.
I do love how they used the Tesseract to address the time paradox of the message stay, which is, if he sends himself the message stay and he stays, he cannot send himself the message stay.
Right.
But then he also sends himself the go message, because when you're in the fourth dimension, it's not like he's going back in time. It's like time isn't a fucking thing. It's like,
it's already happened. It's already
how
happened.
did you time travel without making me upset?
Time is a physical reality.
But
right?
you also are going through his emotional
Lunchtime
journey
doubly
too.
so.
Like he's trying to, it's like the steps of acceptance. He's angry about it and is coming to terms with it. You see this process while he's in the Tesseract, getting it, and then he starts asking for information from Tar.
Lydia Tar.
Yeah,
I need
she
you to help me.
I
need you to help me compose a message. I know you're good at composing things.
How I conduct this, Sand?
Crossover no one expected.
Yes, yeah.
Well, they should have, because my name on here is Lydia Tars, and I am an advocate. I am an ally. I'm a Lydia Tar ally.
I really enjoyed Tars the robot. I mean, in the classic paranoid android Marvin spectrum, he was genuinely funny, and that could have been really, like, if you take a look at the black hole, the Bob character, the Vincent character, not quite as funny, but trying. They did a really good job with what could have been a throwaway character.
Well, if you get down to 20%, you're not gonna like their jokes. They're like, "Oh, my wife,
my wife, robot. You're not even married.
She couldn't fly a ship worth anything. She crashed it. Oh,
it goes straight to the Catskill setting, and it's downhill."
Exactly. Try the field.
I also like that it's clear that 2001: A Space Odyssey exists as a movie in this universe, because he makes the joke.
Makes
where
the
he's
Hal joke.
Yeah. Which, if I was in that ship, right, would have just I would have been like, wow, we're turning around. Like, this ship just referenced 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the robots in control of everything. Like, get me the fuck off this ship. But I like that they made that reference, and I like that it feels like it takes it a step further than the questions that Kubrick raised, which is like, a robot that has a goal, like, what is honesty really, and like, what is being wrong. Like, you realize that it's not that Hal was wrong, it's that Hal had a mission, and the objective was to get to Jupiter, and when like anything that got in the way of the mission, he had the objective to like destroy. And in this, they kind of dispense with that like one moment where he's like, oh, he has he's 95% honest or whatever, because honesty isn't always the most diplomatic policy. And it's like, that's in itself, that number one is kind of would terrify me. So I'm like, you let this robot lie?
And then there's later on, there's the like, well, you can't ask him to do that. It's like, I'm not asking him. I'm telling him. Like, that's and it's your reminder, because you've humanized the robot at that point. Of like, and he's like, no,
you animals, you did it. You humanized the robot. Damn you! Damn you!
to quote another Star Trek episode, it's a very interesting way in how we humanize ourselves. If you're familiar with the episode with the Temerians, where Picard goes to a planet, he can only speak to the alien in phrases that the alien knows. These jokes that we have, making a Hal reference, is like reaching out from robots to human race and being like, I get your culture. It really humanizes him so well.
Well, they say it makes, he thinks like these jokes put us at ease. And it's like, oh my God, they don't. But not these jokes. Like,
not able to read the room, as it turns out. Able to read all the settings of the different planets and everything, but not able to read the room. What a tragedy.
I'm gonna have just an Andy robot. It's gonna just every time we get to a jam, it's gonna just recommend a movie that it's just a bad movie. It's gonna be like,
or reference to Stargate.
You should see this movie. It's terrible. And it's like, this is not the time, Andy robot. J Andrew robot.
There's a giant wave about to crush us. But have you seen
Wolf Warrior 2? But had it, in that movie, you're like, no.
Have you seen Escape from LA? They surf their way out of it. We could do this. I could be the board.
Not a terrible movie.
The Tesseract design also reminded me when Andy and I went to New York City. We were walking through the movie drome or the cinema drome thing that they had at this museum, and it shot all the images from like different movies and stuff. It was like this huge like geodesic dome that had like that was shooting all the images from like the history of movie making, and it kind of reminded me of that kind of lighting design because the entire thing was full of these these moving images kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Geodesic domes rock, by the way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
in
it's
general,
been a
yeah,
long
it's
time
one of
just chilling in there.
Yeah. We met Matthew McConaughey. He gave us ketamine.
You know exactly what it's like to go through a black hole now.
No, but we did get arrested for playing the bongos naked.
There you go.
If you want to know black hole, you should meet my wife.
Right back to that Catskill comedy.
Yeah, exactly. That's this show's sweet spot, apparently. We doing one-liners or what? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Cool. So Letterboxd, of course, is a social media site for film lovers to talk at with and to each other about the movies they love, maybe the movies that they didn't love, the movies that they were incredibly confused by and wrote entire treatises about, perhaps. And, of course, all of this is not just the Siskel's and Eberts of the world. Bottom-up democracy. Everyone gets to have their say, and everyone gets to chime in all about it. Best expressed succinctly. Time dilation is definitely a factor here, folks. Keep it succinct. These are the Letterboxd one-liners for Interstellar. Did you guys know there's a ticking noise that plays faintly in the background, and every second that goes by is one day on Earth?
Yeah, I did learn that from that Letterboxd one.
That's kind of a mind blower. I did notice that this time. That was
I
just
feel like
that was just a fun fact. That's less of a funny thing, but
that's a very biggie fact. Like if you don't know, now you know.
now you know. Watch it again. Is this what happens when you drink the Grimace shake?
Yes.
Yeah. No, you get the blight.
Yeah.
That's how the blight started.
Absolutely terrified of those stupid, creepy wall robots.
Oh, unjust.
I have I have like an air conditioner now that looks like that. Like it's like this big bulky cylindrical thing.
You need to see the design for Maximilian, the robot in Black Hole. That's a scary robot.
That's a scary robot. I agree. Truly, it is every boy's dream to abandon his family and traverse the galaxies with Anna Hathaway and a sarcastic robot.
This is true. That's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, really.
It really is.
Anne Hathaway's the Zathway Beeblebrox.
Exactly. It was who was it in the what's her adorable chick? What was her
Zoe Deschanel?
Zoe Deschanel.
Zoe Deschanel.
Deschanel, yeah.
Deschanel? That's
I don't
never
know.
heard of
Checks notes.
Of the Shonels.
Deschanel? Deschanel?
Well, I've never heard it said out loud before.
Swag robot.
True. True.
See, you get
as they say, no cap.
Yeah, you get the wide swath of opinions on robots.
Swag, no, it's swag level 110.
Yeah, that's cranked up all the way. That was busted. Typical man leaving the female astronaut to raise the future of humanity on her own while he goes off to party in a black hole.
And pretend like he was the big martyr for letting himself go.
Yo, they dunk on him so hard when he's like, wow, you guys named this whole center after me, and we just all start laughing, and they're like, no, not you, your daughter.
We found you floating in space.
Yeah, but they also kind of demean him when they do that. Like they're like it's your daughter, but she said that you kind of helped out, like you were
right. Yeah. It's totally like a fate praise. Damn it.
It's like, okay, Grandpa, you know.
Yeah. All right, sure.
I bet she like
Sure,
started a
Grandpa.
myth. She started a myth about herself. She's like, yeah, my dad was just some fucking hick farmer. I actually did the work. My dad was just some guy that really liked farming, and I hope he's out there.
By the way, that's my Letterboxd friend Jason Lee. He's does a thing called Postcards from Hobbs End. He's a very awesome dude. So
Not to be confused with the skateboarding actor.
Not to be confused with the skateboarding actor at all. No, they're very different people.
All right.
If people were like not believing the old lady that she came up with this through, love from her father across time, he just showed up and he's 30. I really feel like that seals the deal on did she or didn't she?
Yeah.
I think, but think about legend making, right? People aren't thinking that hard about it. You know what I mean? They're probably like, oh, it's kind of crazy that that's.
But I do kind of like that people couldn't make the, like, it implies that people couldn't make the logic jump to like your dad's in space sending your messages. They're like, yeah, we believe you that, like, you know, there's another planet out there and we can travel there. And like, we believe all the stuff that you're doing about science, like new stuff. We don't believe you about your dad. I'm sorry. That's jumping the shark for us.
People really get hung up on banal details. I'm just saying. Just saying.
Night extravaganza.
Space Mountain at Disneyland feels a lot like this.
Oh, I was too short. I didn't know. I don't know. I can't say.
I'm driving through Space Mountain, and I'm just trying to understand the differences between space and time. You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, like totally that last part where you go down that water slide.
Going down that water slide, man.
The wave planet still gets me sweating.
It is such a tense scene, and I know everything that's going to happen. They're so right.
And again, that goes back to the, like, first time I saw it, I was like, holy shit, is that a wave? And to be like, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
It's a bit pleasant though when it's hot out and, you know, you're on Adderall, you're fucking a little dehydrated, you see all that water, you're like, you know, it's the planet. It's the planet. You need to be on the wave planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if we were writing the SNL skit when this came out, then McConaughey would have busted loose the surfboard, I'm sure. But
you know, that's what I like about these waves, man.
Love this movie so much, but why does Matt Damon always need his ass saved in space?
Legit.
In this, he does not get his ass saved in space.
He does not. He does not.
He just
But
needs it.
Yeah, that's the baseline criteria of why he's doing it. Anyway, those are the Letterboxd one-liners for Interstellar. Please follow the show. That's Lydia Tars over there at Movie Night Extra. Now conducting the self-destruct sequence. Get it? It's funny because imminent destruction.
It's funny, man, because Lydia Tar got herself canceled. You know,
logging all the shows that we do on this. Logging all the movies that we do on this show and so much more. Of course, Conan Neutron, Planet Neutron is the correct choice, as y'all know, as is following me because I'm always logging all the stuff, the highbrow, the midbrow, the populist fare. Follow me along for the Criterion Challenge. I'm ahead of the game, people. I'm definitely finishing this year, even with some touring in the fall. So just know that in your heart of hearts, people. J. Andrew, End of the World. That's just kind of a catch-all nickname, I think, for most of the movies we cover. Yeah. Black hole of references, and also a black hole of weird cinema that you know, all the weirdest stuff. So you don't have to, or maybe so you can. I don't know. Maybe you can warn yourself about it.
I find some gems on occasion.
Exactly. It's all. Any which way you look at it, it's all there, and he's doing it.
Call him Adam Sandler because he finds some gems on occasion.
I got gems.
KT, vital information necessary, centralized, is on Letterboxd and is moving forward like a cosmic child with doing a thing now and again. So you can follow KT as well. J Underworld, please take us with plugs.
All right, you're watching us on YouTube right now, so please do those YouTube things: like, comment, subscribe, hit that
different
bell.
Jason Lee. I said so it was a different Jason Lee.
Yeah. Hit that bell, please, so you can find out when we're doing when new videos are coming out, when we're going live, and all that kind of stuff.
Hit that bell, man.
The big ask force is to watch the video to the end. That allows you get the short-term benefit of hearing a great Conan Neutron song. But we get the added benefit of allowing other movie fans to find our content. So, please support us in that small way.
Even if you want to, mute it and put the thing at the bottom of the window at the bottom of the screen and do other stuff. I don't care. Just, keep it going.
Watch it to the end. Yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you. Just please watch it to the end.
Leave us on for your dogs and cats.
They get lonely.
They love us.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, we just discovered the bird.
You're not
channel.
ready for it, but your pets are gonna love it.
We are on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now Blue Sky. So please, if
I'm
you are
sorry
on,
to all the targeted minority groups that I used a second invite to Blue Sky. You couldn't get off Twitter. I'm sorry. I had to make a podcast one. You know, I'm sure it'll get backlash somewhere because everyone's like, "Oh, don't use it for your, for a second account." It wasn't my invite. I didn't use my own invite. I gave my invite to Conan. Wait.
Finally, someone remembered the neutron.
But I did use Christina's invite to make a blue sky for the podcast.
So follow us on there. That's a long story to say. Follow us on that thing if you're on it.
Yeah. If you're on there, find us there, and if not, maybe
are we on Threads? I don't know.
I'll do better next time.
Not yet.
I'm on Thread. The nice thing about Threads is that you can find your friends easy because it's all connected with Facebook and Instagram.
The bad thing about Threads is literally everything else. But yeah.
Yes, correct. Yeah. I joined and I was immediately followed by Cat Turd.
The first post that I saw on Threads was fucking Chris D'Elia being like, "Hey guys," and I was like, "Oh, this sucks."
Don't worry, Stevie. I'm not on Blue Sky.
My following list is not the list that Chris D'Elia should be on. He should be on the sex offender list.
But if you like that take and you want more of that, we have a Patreon. You can access after parties where we're constantly saying things like that. And
we're constantly talking about Chris D'Elia, man. What can you say?
Yeah. All right.
Exclusive Chris D'Elia content.
I don't even know if I want to be on that.
This is going better than the one where I just started doing a Mario voice and couldn't stop.
That wasn't even the after party. That was on the main show.
I know.
I went on for so long.
It comes back around. It gets funny again.
It did, but I was like, I can't imagine what people actually coming to hear about Escape from New York are thinking about this.
But yeah, please follow us.
I think I need to escape from this stream.
I'd like to escape from the bit, but
yeah, well,
working.
I'm trying to escape from this tangent so we can talk about our Patreon. But
we're on tangents at Movie Night Extravaganza. Oh, we sure are.
Yo, we're real close to getting a new social media site called like Tangents. Like I feel like that's a good name for
that'd be great. Yeah.
This is for the stuff that you think, should I post this on Twitter? And you're like, yeah, this is tangents.
Tangents.
Yeah. There we go.
It's for kids.
So Conan, you just had Rick Pelletier and Jay Ryan from the Six Fingered Satellite.
Did you say from the Six Finger Satellites? Oh, we got Rick Pelletier and Jay Ryan from the Six Finger Satellites coming up next. Yeah, no, it was a great episode. Those guys are, if you're into that kind of music, legendary fellas. Providence, Rhode Island. There's a reissue of Pigeon's Most Popular Bird on Sub Pop. It's great episode, very in depth if you're remotely into that band or even like heard about them. Thank you, Stevie's giving me props. I gotta put that on screen. Then you should check it out, and if you're not, then you probably don't care about literally any of the things we just talked about. But that's only some of the entertainment that you can expect to find when you tune into Conan Transport Talkers.
Yeah, because you're going to have M. Martin from Coordinated Suicides in Pink City coming on this week.
That's true. That is absolutely true, and that should be a good one. Also, Caryatids, who are I just saw them with Porcelain recently, new band, very good. He's consistently good.
Good. All right. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you want to support that, Conan also has a Patreon.
Yep.
So you can $1 a month, and you get early access to the episodes.
That's right. And we're on all the different social medias. I've never standardized the username, so figure it out. Oh, not on Blue Sky, I guess, but all the rest of them.
Yeah, Mastodon. Mastodon also has that extra.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. We don't talk about Mastodon.
It's the disused Linux of social media, unfortunately. Peace and love.
But you have a show coming up with Rick Valentine of Poster Children. Poster Children, which Rick Valentine will be our guest next week. So kind of a big deal
for After Hours. Yeah.
Yes.
Poster Children are an incredible band, and we're playing with them in Milwaukee on Saturday, and that should be an incredible show. So anyone remotely in the area, hopefully already knows about it, but go see that. That should be a good one. It's also going to be one of our only Milwaukee shows this year. And then we have 2 shows. We have Columbus, Cincinnati, and Louisville next week, and then Madison, I think, the week after that. That's all I can. I got a tour to announce in the fall, but still can't say anything. So sorry.
It's okay. You'll be able to announce it when you can announce it. But if you can't wait,
it's a teaser.
If you can't wait for to see Conan, why not go to neutronfriends.bandcamp.com and get yourself some actual music?
Mm-hmm.
Please do so.
Yeah, was it $26 for everything? Is that the
yeah,
deal?
yeah, you can get the whole digital discography, which is there's a crazy amount of music there. That's four records? Well, three full lengths, a singles collection, 2 EPs, something like that. It's a lot. It's good value. Good value.
Yeah. It's very well worth it.
You gotta have a fifth CD that's just like your thoughts. It's just like a recording that you carry around with you. You're like, today I thought about, and it's like wow, I got all these CDs, but like Conan's thoughts. That's wild. That's a wild record.
It's the bonus CD.
Get that spoken word Emmy.
Exactly. For people that don't hear me talk enough on the podcast or this podcast.
He started talking about quantum gravity. I think maybe they're doing Interstellar. I don't know.
Look, if I thought it would get more patrons, I'll talk about that all day long. It's fine. I don't mind. I've done that for free. Usually to drunk people.
Hey, drunk people. You want to talk about astrophysics?
I'm not even kidding.
No, hey, I've had my fair share of drinks with, scientists, but that's just how I've rolled. I've lived a blessed life.
I'm a good Christian man, so I don't believe in science. If a scientist walks up to me, I'm saying the only science I need is my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Mike Patton did make a CD of him just making weird noises. It's true, and people bought it.
Wait, you can do that?
You're Mike Patton.
If you're Mike Patton, yes, you can.
To be clear, if you're as talented as Mike Patton, yes, you can. But
yeah,
the average person should definitely not do that.
Yeah. and if you don't know who Mike Patton is necessarily, he was in Faith No More.
Yeah,
like that's what.
Oh, he's not the guy from Police Academy.
That's Michael Winslow.
The beeps, the beeps and the creeps.
Like good noise making.
Yeah. No, but I wonder if they like hang out with each other.
That would be amazing. They should do a duet album together. Just making noises.
You heard it here first, guys.
Them and
bring them together.
But them and the Scatman.
Oh yeah, the Scatman. Yeah, like that guy's. Well, he passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's a crazy story, though. Like
yeah.
Anyways, but Christina is not here. I do want to say, buy her coffee. Go to kofi.com/cosmopolitics and
coffeebrown.net.
Give her buy her coffee or catch her on Twitch when she's next online. So follow her there at Cosmopolitics. And of course, KT, you had some plugs that I don't know about. Just secret plugs.
No, secret plugs.
It's like NASA.
Yes.
Conan Neutron and the
plugs.
Conan Neutron and the secret plugs.
Yes, exactly.
Oh man,
why does Chad not get that one? That's
Jesus. No, I do want to again plug that I will be appearing in the Opinions May Vary podcast where I play Gansfield, the Russian villain, and one of the true crime podcast hosts, and that's the Starwell Foundation, and that's getting edited and will be coming out soon. But I also wanted to plug that I am working with people to bring a haunted house to New York City for its second year in the old Ripley's Believe It or Not building. This is called Terror Haunt. So if you go on Instagram at Terror Haunt, you can see finished up our casting. You can see some of the themes for this year, but it's going to be a really fun haunted house you can visit.
Very cool.
All right.
Oh, and I did also want to shout out to my brother who came to our live show and is in the chats again today. Hey, Nick.
Fantastic. Yes, we speak your name, literally.
Yes.
And one last plug. My birthday is Friday. I've posted on social media an Amazon wish list. If you wanted to get me something, you can do it from there.
Stargate box set.
Yeah.
Stargate box set and VHS.
Yeah.
Or if you want to join me the day before my birthday, one of my favorite bands, The Fawns, is doing a free show in Northampton. So come to that. You don't have to pay any money. Show starts at 6, and I'd love to see you there. And maybe we could do something afterwards. So please come join me. Have fun.
Well, KT, do you have some final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I had a really stoned but appropriate thought earlier today. I was looking at a Papasan chair, and I realized that I think I have almost experienced singularity. If you've ever sat in a Papasan chair and then had somebody else try and sit in the chair with you, you both got pushed to the exact same point. And I feel like That's my final thought.
That's what that song by Kevin Federline was about, right?
Sure.
Conan.
Don't humor him.
Conan, do you have some final thoughts?
Yes, Hal. Yes, I do. I look. I think you have to be bought into the idea that humanity should endure, and the frontier mentality is a narrative function. But I think this is a very richly shot and focused film that's very ambitious. Some of the things that I felt were flawed the first time around didn't bother me at all this time.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing, very daringly inscrutable and exceptionally complex. But knowing the answers isn't the point. It's all about the vistas. The incredible visuals, the production design, big ideas, the soaring sense of scale, it all works for me. I think it's very engrossing. I think the performances are great. And it, as I said before, definitely rewards both the patient and repeat viewings. And it's definitely worth a dip past the black hole to take advantage of the time dilation on that 169-minute runtime.
I want to hear that comment, but given by Matthew McConaughey saying it's all about the vistas, man. Sometimes
It's all about the vistas, man.
That's why I drive my Lexus.
As I say, I can see us in the commercial.
Yeah, he's with my Lincoln. I don't do this because it was cool. I did it so I could see those vistas. Andy, do you have final thoughts?
I do. My favorite thing about this movie is perspectives. Like our view of the universe is so limited because of our scope of time that we've been on this planet, and the fact that we can only see what is observable around us, and we can't zoom out to see the bigger picture. And this movie attempts to zoom out a little bit to try to show us that bigger picture of the universe, to see that cosmic cycle of life that we are a small part of, but we don't quite comprehend our little piece of it because we don't see the larger picture.
That was very well said. I lost it. I lost it. I lost the Hal voice, but I still would prefer having Hal doing navigations to like fucking Siri or whatever. You know, I'm just saying. And that's
I'm sure you can
thought.
set your Siri to be Hal.
I would be shocked if you couldn't.
Yeah.
But that's my final thought. So
not even about this movie.
No, I like this movie a lot. I like my brain's kind of been jumping around in a million directions with thinking about it because it feels like we're so close to like, climate apocalypse that kind of mirrors, because you don't know, like we don't know what the temperature rising is going to do to the to the earth as a whole. Like there's a million other possibilities of things that could have existed, like with natural disasters, with just all kind of like fault lines opening up, like all that thing. Like it seems almost apocalyptic. So this movie kind of hits those same notes. And of course the blight, you got to wear the masks all the time. We're gonna be real pissed about that.
Let me die from the dirt.
Mask up. I wonder if there's like blight anti-maskers. Blight's not real. Blight's not real.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but you don't see them in the movie because they're all dead.
I mean, there are people who are disavowing the landing on the moon. So yes, there are.
Bill Gates bought up all the land, and somehow that's connected to us not being able to grow food no more. And he put something with dirt. I don't know.
You know why?
Blight's not real.
Hunter Biden's laptop.